My name is Susan Colbert. I am interviewing Gary Rowley on September 20th, 2021 at the Sparta Public Library in Sparta, Illinois. Hello, and glad you are with us.
Hello.
And would you like to be called Mr. Rowley or Gary?
Gary?
Okay, Gary. We'll start then with our questions. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Peoria, Illinois, June 5th, 1948.
Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My parents was Ruth Stanton, and actually I was adopted, and it was Eddie Michael.
What were their occupations?
He was a bus driver at the time. They were both very young, and I don't think she had an occupation at that time.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do. I have a brother, Roderick Bryan, and he is passed. That's Roderick Bryan Rowley, and Linda Enola Rowley, who is in Taylorville, Illinois.
Did any of them serve in the military?
No.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pana, Illinois, for pretty well about 18, 19 years of my life.
What schools did you attend?
I went to Washington School in Pana, and then I went to the junior high in Pana, and also the high school in Pana.
Did you like school?
Mhm. Because of sports, I liked school.
What did you enjoy doing in your youth?
We played all night long, and played all day long pretty well, until it got totally dark, then we'd come back in. But we'd probably go out in the morning at 9 o'clock and not get back in till noon to eat dinner, and then back outside till about 7 or 8 o'clock was the average day.
Did you play ball or what?
Yes, I played pretty well all sports, but loved football and loved basketball all through my life.
What were you doing before you joined the service?
School, and I was working part-time. I joined the 120 delay program, I think it's called, in the Navy, and so I had like 120 days to goof off and do what I wanted to do, then went to the Navy service.
Was your 120 days, was that from the time you graduated high school
I think so. I think it's when they did. And why I did it that way is I didn't want to be drafted, and I wanted, because the draft was going on at that time, I didn't want to draft. So I wanted to pick my service, and at that time I picked Navy. And I think I picked Navy because my dad was Navy, and so I decided Navy.
In what year did you join the service?
I joined the service, it'd be November 68, I believe. November 68, yeah, November 61, November 21st, 68, if I remember right.
And how long did you serve?
3 years and about 6 months. I
Where-
got an early cut, what they call a Vietnam cut, if you served, and so I got out 6 months early. It was a 4-month or a 4-year sign up.
Where were you living when you joined the service?
I was living in Pana, still Pana, Illinois.
And how old were you when you joined?
Probably 19.
And in which branch of the military did you serve?
I joined the Navy.
Did you you enlisted?
I enlisted.
Why did you choose that specific branch of military?
I think because my dad was Navy.
Mhm.
My dad was one of the original frogmen, the UDT, Underwater Demolition Team. So he was one of the original frogmen. And I kind of looked up to that, and I think that's why I joined the Navy. And I think that's why I wanted to get involved with more of the river, what they call brown water Navy, instead of the blue water Navy.
And explain that to me, please.
Brown water Navy is small boats, might hold, a patrol boat might hold 5 people to like 13 people usually is what the average. And it's just a smaller organization. It worked rivers instead of the ocean more so.
Before joining, had you ever thought about serving in the military?
A little bit. I think I looked at everything. I looked at Air Force especially, and ended up going Navy.
What happened when you departed for training?
When I joined, we left out of Springfield, Illinois, and then took a train into the Great Lakes, and that's where you went. Great Lakes is in Chicago area, a little bit north Chicago, and that's where the boot camp starts, and that's where I went.
What happened during your early days of training?
Well, just like everybody else, I think it's 16 weeks is what it was, and it's divided up by companies that, and it's basically working 16 weeks training. I happened to have pneumonia, and that was at service week. Service week is a week they set aside that you actually go in. Most of them go in and cook and peel potatoes and stuff like that. Well, I had pneumonia during that time, so I was in the hospital for like 5 days and got better and got out of there, or they would have had to hold me back another week. But being as it was service week, I got to go on with my company, and I think my company was 704.
Do you recall your instructors? And if so, what were they
No,
like?
we had the one instance I remember about my instructor. 2 things I think I remember about boot camp. One, it was icy cold, and our instructor was very, very strict. In fact, I think they got rid of him during the middle because we never did see him again. He would, we had locks. Everybody had a little lock, a little box about this big, this little box. And you could put anything you wanted in there, like money, billfolds, stuff like that. Well, he would come in and say, "Attention on deck." If you could not touch your box, your lock, then he would gather your lock up. And he would lock all these locks, these all combinations up, and throw them outside in the snow. Then he would tell everyone, go to your locker, and if your lock is gone, put your shower shoes on and your skivvies, your underwear, and come in front of us. And he would send us down there and get all the locks unlocked before we could come in. And it was really cold. That's one of the funny stories about that. Another funny story about that is, I think in 705, another company, this company had a very famous person, Gary Lewis. Jerry's boy was in that company, supposedly. I never saw him, but anyway, that's supposedly what was.
He had a band, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
What did you think of basic training?
I didn't think it was that physical. It was more mental. But every second they were watching you and having you do different things. A lot of stuff was stupid, but it was just to get you to see if you could take orders and do the job. So I liked it.
How did you adapt to the physical regimen of military life?
The physical was, I don't think it was all that physical. I think I was in fairly good shape from football and basketball playing up. I did. So I don't think it was all that physical. It was cold, and that was the worst part of it.
What did you think about living in barracks?
Well, didn't really like it because you got everybody really close to you, but it wasn't bad. I don't think it was bad or anything. But we had to wash our own clothes, and we had to do that with a little brush and just a little brush and soap and water, and we had a big long table like that you could put water in. You put water in and scrub your clothes. That's how we had to do it.
How was the food?
The food wasn't that bad, I didn't think. but I don't complain too much about the food, and you got enough of it, so I don't think it was that bad.
Did you get any free time during boot camp?
No. You didn't get much free time. You got to sleep. Whenever you went to bed, you try to sleep as fast as you can, because you're going to get up early in the morning.
What was the worst part of boot camp? And I think you may have covered this.
Well, that really wasn't that bad, but I don't know. I really don't think it was really that bad. I mean, you can complain about anything, but I don't think I complained about it that much at all.
Did you receive any specialized training?
In boot camp, no. Pretty well everyone goes through the same thing. There's really no difference at all in boot camp.
At what point did you start having specialized training?
After you got out of boot camp, I went to Norfolk, Virginia, to a destroyer leader, a DL. DL-1 Norfolk, USS Norfolk, was the name of the ship I was on. But about 3 months later, I got called back to A school. A school was a specialized school and I was going in for guns. Now these are not little guns, these are big guns, 5-inch, 16 inches and 5-inch, but my specialty was 5-inch guns, which is about 5 inches like that, about that big. If I remember right, I think the shells weighed 56 pounds, and then the powder weighed about 56 pounds too. So 54 pounds, if I remember right. And they were about, the powder be that high and the shell be about that high.
And did it set on something? I mean, you didn't have to hold these to...
No, we carried them all the time. That's what the most physical part when we went to Vietnam, especially. You're unloading ammo all the time, and it's 56 pounds that you're carrying all the time. And that's what the physical part in the ship was. Everyone did it too.
Where did you serve?
I served in Chicago, Norfolk, Virginia, Albany, Georgia, and back to Chicago, then San Diego, then San Francisco, Mare Island, and then Coronado, that's by San Diego. Then I was on ship, what they call a Westpac, and a Westpac is a Vietnam tour, and usually what they do is they run you on the gun line, what they call a gun line, for 30 days. And then you usually go somewhere and repair the ship, and you get some off time there. You know? So you might be a week repairing on the ship, and at night you get to go off the ship and do what you want to do.
How did you travel between your locations?
Mostly by air. Mostly by air we traveled. And most of it private air.
If you served abroad, and did you serve abroad?
I've been in all the Orient. I think I've been everywhere. I think I've been Japan, I've been in Yokosuka, Tokyo, Sasebo, and then I've been to Hong Kong, Philippines, Taiwan. I know I'm forgetting some, but all over that area. All over that area.
What are some of your memories of that experience?
Basically, I do have good memories of it. There's some bad memories when you talk about Vietnam, because after one ship tour, which was 9 months, I went on land at a base called Dong Tam in Vietnam, and I was there about 9 months too. And there's a lot of things that happen that are not good things and sad to think about. But on the basic of the Navy, I think I enjoyed it. I think I matured a lot.
What was the most impressive place that you saw?
I liked Taiwan, because Taiwan was, I thought, about the only place in the Orient that liked us. They seemed to like Americans. And now, they may have changed, but that place seemed to be more friendly towards Americans than any place else I've been.
What kind of friendships did you form while serving, and with whom?
I really only had one really good friend, and we just kept, well, I went to school with him once, and then I went overseas, and the base I was on was only 125 Americans, and it was a small little naval base, and we had a Vietnamese Navy, and I was involved in what they call the Naval Advisor Group, and that's what I was. And basically what we were trying to do is get them ready to take over, because my base was getting smaller every day, and the Army base on the other side was getting a lot smaller every day. So we was trying to get them to take up the slack.
How did you stay in touch with your family and friends back home?
We had, in Vietnam, we had a shortwave radio, I think it was ham radios. And what you did is you call over there at the base and say, hey, can I make a phone call home? And they say, yeah, come over about 8:30. So we go over by 8:30, and he said, okay, what's your number? And I give him a number, and someone else is already talking. I give him a number, and they would physically call your mother, put her online, and then they would get you, and when you talked, you would say, hi Mom, how you doing? Over. And she said, oh, good, Gary, it's nice to hear from you. Over. But then that's why we did it. Just a guy had a button, and it was basically shortwave radio. And what's interesting about this, a lot of people don't know, is if it come into Vegas or LA. If it come into Vegas, Howard Hughes paid for the bill, for the phone bill from Vegas to Pena. Now, if it came in LA, the Playboy, what's his name? The Playboy, Hugh Hefner paid it from LA to Pena. We never got a bill.
Oh. What did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
There's not much recreation. Not that much recreation there as far as that goes. Tour a little bit. That's about all we did. You know, that was in Vietnam. Now overseas, there was a lot of tours you could go on, but I didn't. I seemed to drank a little bit too much, stuff like that. A typical young guy. You know, that's it.
That was your recreation.
That was basically it. Having a beer, I guess.
Did you ever attend a USO show?
Yeah, we had a couple at our base, our small little base. We had a couple shows that were good, were real good. But I never did go to a big one or anything. We were almost going to go see Bob Hope, and that fell through with some problems that we had in our area, so we didn't get to go. And that would have been probably 60, 70 miles away.
Did you have contact with civilians, and how did they treat you?
I had a housekeeper that I thought, her name was Way, and she was a really nice girl, nice young girl, and she treated me so good, it was unbelievable. She would do stuff like washing the bedclothes and washing my clothes, and she would cook dinner for me if I wanted to come home and eat. And she just washing and cleaning everything, and my stuff was always over there. She's a nice person, real nice person. I tried to get in contact with her numerous times when I come back, and really couldn't do it. And also, I waited for a little while because I was worried about the communists, maybe what they do with her, you know. So I waited for a little bit, and then I tried to get a hold of them. Then the zip codes come in effect, and the address changed. I never could get a hold of her.
Did you ever meet or see anyone famous?
over there, overseas.
Or any time while you were in the
Service.
military?
Not that I can think of. Not that I can think of, to tell you the truth.
Did you ever meet any POWs?
No, never met a POW.
What did you think of the people you served with?
Good people. Well, I thought all of them were good people. Like I say, I think I really enjoyed the service. I think it made a man out of me, to tell you the truth.
What were your commanding officers like?
They were good. They were, they really just stayed away from us most. And what most is I'm talking about is when I was in Vietnam, and I was on ship too. But on Vietnam, the commanders and stuff pretty well stayed away from me. But we were busy all the time. We had basically like an 8-hour shift where we went down and basically worked with the Vietnamese, trying to work whatever it is. My particular job was base defense, so I might take a trip with one of my Vietnamese and show him what I think needs to be done, and stuff like that's what we did. Or it might be a gun needed a new barrel. So as a gunner's mate, I would say, hey, let's go look at that barrel and check it out. And we go check it out. I said, okay, change this barrel. And then come back, give them permission to go do it. I did stuff like that, a lot. And then we'd come home, and we were building a new area for ourselves. Our hooches, when I first got there, were just a piece of wood junk, basically, is all it was. But we built halfway nice looking places with brick walls and everything. And so we'd work on that till probably 4 hours a night. So we worked ourselves really hard.
What was the highest rank you achieved?
I was given a Vietnam upgrade to E5, and I didn't get to take it because I got the cut. I applied sometime. I thought we might be getting cut, and I was spoiled because in Vietnam they didn't check your shoes to see if they were shined or anything, even though they were, because the hooch maid was doing that for us. But it was more stricter, military-wise, but some places. This place wasn't. And so I liked that part. There's really not that real strict military. And you mentioned before about the officers. We just never saw him that much. It seems like, I don't know what he was doing, but we didn't see him.
I'm going to ask you some questions specific to the Navy. What ship or ships did you serve on?
I was on a U.S., the first one was a USS Norfolk, which is a DL-1, which is Destroyer Leader. And we never left. I was on it about 3 months and never left the port at all. It was a small little ship, had 3-inch 70s on it, which is a gun. There was only one set of guns like that. The other set, there was only one in the United States and one in Canada. That's all there was. So we didn't go anywhere with that. I just stayed there and we worked on that ship, rusting, sanding and wire brushing and stuff like that. That's all we did. Then the second ship I was on, I went to Vietnam tour, 9 months. It was USS Wiltsey, DD-716. I was on that destroyer, and I was a gunner's mate on that ship. I'm working on 5-inch guns. I went through numerous schools, probably 3 different A schools on the 5-inch gun and 50 caliber machine gun and stuff like that. And then the 16-week as a gunner's mate. That's the major school right there. That's all guns.
How was your ship organized?
What do you mean by that? Organized. Well, it was divided into divisions. Each division, whatever you had to do, and it was either a shopkeeper, a radarman, a gunner's mate, or whatever, and it's all through the ship like that. So.
Were you ever stationed on land?
Yes, Albany, Georgia, and why, I don't know. Why I was put to Albany, Georgia, because that's inland, and I was a gunner's mate, which is called a black shoe, and, so I don't know. I was told that they knew I played football, and they had really big football teams down there, and they had, like, each squadron had a football team, and I made the all team, all Albany, Georgia team, which I think it was 13 squadrons, remember right? So each one had a team, so I made that the championship thing, or whatever you want to call it. And I really didn't know why I was Albany. No one knew it. Everyone said, "Why are you here for us?" I don't know.
To play football, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you play football then? Did you have
Yeah, we
a lot
played
of
football
games?
all over. We played football. We got on planes and go to Jacksonville or where else we go? Pensacola. We went everywhere. Nashville, Tennessee. We played football up there, but at weekends we played football. That's all we did.
Did you ever see naval combat?
Yeah. We fired, on the ship, we fired what they call a raspant fire. And that'd be they'd have spotter planes in Vietnam. We'd be like a mile offshore, 2 miles, 5 miles maybe. About 5 miles be max. And they have spotters in there, and they would see something, action that shouldn't be there. And they would say the Wiltshire, call the Wiltshire and say, okay, give us three rounds of whatever, armor piercing or white phosphorus at this location, and give us a mark, and we'd shoot boom, 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 like that. And then wait, might be another hour, and they say, okay, give us 1 round of such and such here, you know. And that's what they did. It was called a raspant fire to keep them awake, which kept us awake too. But we'd have, the mounts might be just half mounted, we might use only 1 gun, and that's what we did a lot.
What were your living conditions on board like?
A little bit good. Really, that was one of the first air conditioning places I was ever at. I think we had it in, I don't know if we had boot camp, no, that was November, but I think in the summer, I think that ship was probably the first air conditioning I actually slept in.
What year was that, Gary?
That was probably 70.
What was the longest cruise you took?
Our cruise, most of our, what they call West Packs, were 9 months long. So we take off from San Diego and come back 9 months later.
And you mentioned that you were a gunner's mate. What were your duties doing with that?
Taking care of any type of guns that you might have. In other words, on the ship, I was taking care of the 5-inch guns, is my job. And then I also was assigned to small arms at one time, so I took care of the small arms, which is the handheld guns. I took care of all of them in the locker. And then overseas, they usually assign you to, one time they assigned me to the maintenance place. So anyways, my job was they have boats, these small boats, PBRs, called patrol boats, river. And they would have 50 calibers on them, or Honeywells, or 60 millimeters. They had all kinds of different guns on there. And I had to make sure they worked or whatever. Whatever, they were broke, I had to fix them or something. And then to last, we tried to get them to do the work, the Vietnamese. It's called Vietnamization, but that didn't work out too good.
Did you ever have to change jobs or do a job that you weren't trained for?
No. I mean, a lot of jobs you get, you may not know. You know, I know you might go to say, okay, we want you to work on this the flamethrower. I had a flamethrower. I never seen a flamethrower. I never had one screw on flamethrower. So you go over there and you find a buddy or something and say, hey, help me on this flamethrower, you know, and might help you on the flamethrower. Stuff like that, yeah, you always run into something like that.
What part of your job did you least enjoy?
Least enjoy. I really enjoyed most of it. Well, battle, I mean, you don't like battle, but that'd be on land, because on sea, you don't have to worry too much about battle, not to worry too much about it. You gotta worry about guns exploding because they're working too hard, and that's bad. The one thing about being in a ship is the hardest work I've ever been in my life. Because you always have 56 pounds in your hand, it seems like. So, I hated it when it was my time to sleep, because you work 6 on and 6 off. And if you had to rearm, and that was your sleeping time, you weren't gonna sleep. So you went to your station there and loaded weapons, loaded shells.
What was your most memorable experience while serving?
Memorable experience. I guess getting to my base on Vietnam the first day, because I was a little scared and trying to figure everything out. A lot of guys are not real, they're friendly, but they don't want to show you anything. They don't want to intermingle so much sometimes, you know.
This was the Vietnamese
Yes.
people?
Well, no, the Americans, even the Americans, they're worried about you. In other words, they might think that you might be someone who's gonna report them or something like that, or they just don't want to get to know anybody, you know. They're worried about things, I guess, I don't know.
What was your most frightening experience?
Well, I would say probably the first time we got hit on shore was probably the most worrisome, I guess, because I didn't even know what was going on. I was in bed sleeping, and I had a watch at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we started getting shelled, and I jumped up and I seen all the lights for the pop flares that they were shooting. I thought I overslept. I thought I overslept my watch. Jumped up, got dressed, and realized that was shells hitting. And then they got a little bit closer, and I could yell. So I didn't know exactly where to go, because he told me Charlie Company I was supposed to go. So I took off running down to pallets. They had pallets because of the rain. It was in the rainy weather. And I stopped a guy. I said, "Where is Charlie Company?" He said, "Right over there." You know, I ran over there, jumped in, and found out it was a commander bunker, not Charlie. It was a commander. So I said, "I'll go." He said, "No, stay here, wait." And so we had to wait there. He was getting his mortared. So I guess that was as scary as it was.
What was your most exhausting experience?
Loan ammo on a ship is the most exhausting. I stayed down below in the armory, where they stored all the weapons, or stored all the shells, and we stacked them. And you're constantly stacking them all the time. It's really physical.
Do you have any funny memories?
Well, actually, it wasn't about running down there and when we first got hit and stopping the guy and saying, "Where is Charlie bunker?" While there was mortars coming around us and going in the wrong place. I think that was kind of funny. And then that day, that was like 2 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock, I had to go to the main gate, and it was inside gate, but you couldn't let anything in or out, and you stood watch with the Vietnamese, and that was my first watch, and first time I was working with the Vietnamese, and so we one-on-one had that gate, you know, and so you're watching. You got water right next to you that you had to watch, and you had to watch the roads coming in and out. This is a small area where your base was, where they had a little hospital about this size here, is all they had. But we come in, what was odd about this one is I knew a little bit of Vietnamese because I went to school for it, and he knew a little bit of English. So someone runs in and on a Jeep and says, da, 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 da. And I didn't get all of it. All I heard was one, and I heard foot. Is all I knew what he said, and I found out someone got shot in the foot when we got hit. So I said, okay, bring him in. I called the radio and said, bring him in. So we brought him in, and there he was. He had a shot in his foot, and they brought him on in, and then it wasn't 15 minutes later, same thing happened. Foot. I heard foot again, and I said, okay, bring him in. I said, where we got him? Where we got him? He says, no, 2. I said, hi. Hi is 2 for Vietnamese. So I brought him in. And what I found out later on is a lot of them shoot themselves in the foot to get out of work. and get
Are
out of
these the
service.
Americans or
No,
Vietnamese?
those were Vietnamese. Vietnamese.
Where were you? Where were you when your period of service ended?
Vietnam. I put what they call a chit in, asking that whenever I leave Vietnam, that I'm out of the service. And it was approved. And it wasn't, probably 2 months later, they got a hold of me and said, okay, Gary, we're moving you back to San Diego. And I said, no, I'm not here. He said, yep, you're going. Then I went to Travis Air Force Base, is where I flew in at from Vietnam. And I got decommissioned there, or whatever you call it. Got out of service there.
How did you return home?
Plane.
How were you received by your family and community?
I was received good by that. I was not received, luckily, I did not have to go to San Francisco Air Force Base, because that's where it was pretty bad with people with uniforms on. They really didn't. Back in the 60s and early 70s, it wasn't treated right. I come out of Travis and moved right into Springfield, Illinois. I think I went from Travis to Chicago and went to the USO there and then stayed there. And then from there, I went to Springfield, Illinois, I believe.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
I did okay. I did okay. I believe I did all right.
What was your first job after discharge?
Actually, coal mine. Went to work with my dad's mine in Coffeen, Illinois. Was actually my first job. Well, I messed around a little bit waiting for that particular job.
What was the biggest surprise about the civilian workplace?
I didn't see any difference in that at all.
Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans?
I moved around so much, like I told you before, I moved around a bunch. The longest I was anywhere was Vietnam, 9 months, and a ship 9 months. So I only, not really. Now, I've had people contact me, and I've been in reunions and stuff, and talk to people, and they say they might remember me, but I don't remember them. So there's been a few people I contact with.
Are you a member of any veterans
I'm
organizations?
a member of the VFW in Coulterville and American Legion actually in Percy.
What have you done since separating from the military?
Work. I
Did you
worked
remain
numerous
in
jobs.
coal mine?
I worked about 12 years in the coal mine. I moved down to Sparta after about 6 months from up north in Pana. Moved down here, and I've stayed down here ever since. I lived in Percy most of the time down here.
Do you have any hobbies?
Not really. I like sports. I like to watch sports, but that's probably the only hobby I really have.
How did your service experiences affect your life?
I think it made me more mature and understanding. I think that's about it. It just made me more mature.
What key knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences that you learned from military service would you say are the most valuable?
You know, it's funny you mention this. It comes with a little funny thing that happened. when we were going through GMGA school, that's the long school, and we was working mostly on 5-inch guns and stuff like that, torpedoes and stuff like that. But then we were working on 5-inch guns, and we were graduating, and the captain come out and he said, guys, he says, you don't realize how much this is gonna help you in the future with your knowledge. And I remember looking at my buddy and I said, 5-inch guns? And I've yet to see a 5-inch gun in Sparta. But if you got one, I think I can fix it.
What has your military service impacted? How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I think I was naive. I joined the service basically because of my dad. He was really my hero. And I think that's why I joined the Navy. And him being a frogman, a SEAL, the old SEALs, I think it felt like I should, when I got out of service, it was my duty to go to the service. And so that's why I did. And I think that made a big move towards what I was looking at. But after about a year, I started reading more on Vietnam and trying to understand it more. And I don't think I should have volunteered. I think John Kerry was right what he did. In fact, I heard stories about John Kerry when I was in Dong Tam, which is where he was at a lot. He was a swift boat captain, and John Kerry generally ran for president a couple of times. But anyway, he was at my base about a year or two before I was there. And I always heard about how brave he was. And when he come home, he protested against the war. And a lot of people jumped on him about that, but he was right. And he saw it. He physically saw it before he made his decision to be against it. And I'm the same way. I was against that. I'm against this mess we're in right now. I think a lot of people made a lot of money, and that's what it's all about.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view this interview?
I think the military is good. It's good for you. War is bad. When you do war, that means you lost. That's a last resort. That's basically it.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview?
No. I went through. I liked the Navy. I always did, and I think they took me in a lot of classes. I didn't get in how many classes I was in. The last class I was in was on speaking Vietnamese, and I could speak a little bit of it towards the last, because our job was basically to work with them and trying to get them to take over the war so we could get home. So, yeah, I'd say, we lost 58,000 people in Vietnam, and for what? I don't know what for. That's all I know.
Well, this concludes our interview. Thank you for taking part in it, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.